Hello, good morning. Can you hear me, Dan?
Hi, pal, I can. Can you hear me?
I think I need to. Yes, I can. I think I just need to adjust this so I'm not. You can see
That's okay.
it's all a bit sort of. It's all a bit just things propped up delicately, precariously balanced. How's that? Is that all right?
That's perfect. How are you?
Excellent. Good to see you, albeit via Zoom. But
How are you
there we
too?
are, the miracles of modern technology.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, good. Oh,
Brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic, mate.
good,
Fantastic.
good.
So,
Oh,
how's your business going?
it's going really well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, we've been open 5 months now. It was brilliant, and then obviously we've had to go into
Yeah,
another lockdown, and
yeah,
yeah, I'm having to do things through obviously Zoom. I'm doing video lessons as well, so that they can watch, rewind, go over things that are slightly more difficult. Um, it's
yeah.
it's going good though. I'm loving it. I should have done it years ago.
Well, you're not that old, are you? So I mean, there's still things to do, and it seems to be very much a growth industry. This tuition and stuff, doesn't it? And all the rest of it. So there's definitely a mark. I would have thought anyway. So you
Oh,
know
definitely.
better.
Yeah, definitely. How's
So
doctors going?
well, it's funny, isn't it? It's like with live music at the moment.
I
It's
know.
we did a gig in March. I think it was the night before the lockdown, and then music venues have been sporadically open, haven't they? So we did one in November. We did one about 3 weeks ago, socially distanced gigs, and that's been about it for the year. Whereas normally we'd be doing five, six, seven, eight a month. So
Yeah,
frustrating, but these socially distanced ones have been quite interesting in a weird way,
yeah.
actually.
Do they have
Just the
tape on
dynamic.
the floor?
Do they what, mate?
Do they have tape on the floor, or how are they doing the social distancing?
Well, what they do is we did one in Alexander's the other week. First of all, it has to be ticket only, so they know the building, and so they obviously make a note who's in there. When you get in, it's table service only, so there's no queuing at the bar. There's social distancing between the tables. There's a one-way system. If you want to go to the loo, you have to go out one way, round the building, back in the other way. Um, there's no dance. They're not allowed to dance. They're not allowed to scream. So we have to say, look, before the gig, we say, look, there's a strict no dancing policy that we have to enforce today. And of course it's limited in a smallish venue.
Yeah,
Like Alexander's the other week, I think it was limited about 35 or 40 people. But it's it sort of brings everyone together, in a fun. Everyone was desperate to get out and enjoy something.
yeah,
So it worked, but it was more of a sit. Whereas we normally try and crank it up and
yeah.
make a Sunday after. It was a Sunday afternoon, make that feel like a Saturday night. It was more. It was obviously sit down cabaret style, but it worked
Yeah.
well, and the venue did, I think, a fantastic job. And everybody, of course, when they went, had if anybody walked round the venue, they had to have their masks on and stuff like that. I think it was as safe as you could possibly make it, and we all felt it, and we were socially distanced as well, of course.
Yeah,
I said to the boys, "Why don't you wear bandanas, as masks?" But
yeah,
we got away with it, and I tried not to do too much spitting as I was singing.
yeah.
But great, it's all right.
Yeah, well, it's difficult with that for a vocalist, isn't it? Because you watch anyone, and they're always putting, as I've seen you do, and when I came to see you at
Yeah,
Northup last year or the year before, you just put
yes,
so much into it.
yeah, yeah,
You can't help what happens. You're just in the zone. You can't do
yeah,
anything about it. So
yeah.
that must have been difficult for you to almost take a step back.
Well, funnily enough, my wife was in the audience, and
Okay.
we've got a new guitarist, and he's a very sort of flamboyant player, very, very good player. And he came up to me, and we did a bit of the old, sort of Bowie, Ronson, bit of old, kind of.
Okay.
And my wife was saying, "Keep your distance, keep your distance." And you do actually. I mean, I think we all occasionally forget, don't we, in these times, whether
Yeah.
it's going into a shop or something, you occasionally forget the protocol.
The amount of
But
times that
yeah, I
I
mean,
Yeah, the amount of times that I get out my car and get halfway to the shop and then go, oh, mask, and have to go back. It,
yes,
it the
Yes,
thing is,
absolutely.
it's becoming a norm, but at the same time, I mean, myself, I've spent 22 years not having to wear a mask, and then all of a sudden, coming into my 23rd year, it's mask, mask, mask. So even though we've had a year of
Yeah,
wearing masks, it's still
yeah,
getting into that habit. It's still almost getting used to it to a point. And it's hard,
yes, that's right.
especially for
Yeah, yeah.
musicians.
It is hard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's. I think we've been quite lucky because you know, at least we've done a couple of gigs. So I
Yeah,
mean, some bands have done nothing. Um, well, most people have done nothing, have they? So it's and you know, I mean, you know, we've stayed in touch. We've tried to use technology a little bit to you know, suggest new tunes, and I think we're all at the point where we can, if we say, look, we're going to do this song or that song. I mean, we did a couple last time where we got to the gig early, and in the sound check we said, yeah, but that's okay, you know, because people had done their homework.
yeah,
And it did give us sort of freshness and an impetus to what we were doing, and to some extent, I suppose we were flying by the seat of our pants. But you know, it's like Dan with blues and R&B and stuff. If you've got decent players, and you know everyone, it's the structure that's going to catch you out. I think if anything is, if we weren't busking, we weren't. I mean, this time last year when we were playing sort of, you know, 7 or 8 gigs a month, or something, everything is automatic pilot to an extent, isn't it? You know, it's tight, and this time the gigs were a little bit, you know, maintaining eye contact, and I think it's the ends. It's all right cranking up a tune, but it's how you're going to bring the thing to an end. So we did end up playing some songs like a sort of 12-minute version of I don't know, Gangster of Love or something like that. But it's great. I loved it, and we're all dead keen, obviously, to get out there as soon as we can from now on.
yeah, of course. Well, it's good to hear because obviously, as I say, I've come to see you guys, and you
Yeah,
are. I'm quite happy to say this. One of the few bands that I've seen live that actually connect because you can see. Obviously, I won't name a band. I don't think they're actually together anymore. But there was a four
yeah,
piece, and I went to see them in Chester in Alexander's, and
yeah,
they didn't. There was no glue there. There was no connection. They were
yeah,
just there to play a few songs, and you'd know at the end of the night they'd go off. They'd probably not talk for a week or
yeah,
something until they next have to practice an hour before the gig. But with you guys, of course,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
actually
yeah,
practicing, you're
yeah,
doing the homework, you're making sure that you are at a certain standard, and you've all got a connection, which is something that I saw.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Good. That's very kind. Okay.
that's all right.
Yeah.
It's
Spread
not
the
a problem.
word, Dan.
It's all right. Just for the record,
I mean, I'm very much hope.
well,
Yeah.
go on.
I was just going to say, I very much hope that you know, when sort of, you know, cliche, I just hope that the you know are going to be able to sort of come back, and I hope very much that, you know, bands who have been on hiatus, you know, for the
Yeah,
best part of a year now, they will have the inclination, you know, to get it back together. I mean, certainly we have, you know, we we've changed the lineup a little bit since you saw us as well. I think. Did we have the sax player when you saw us at the
I think so.
or
Yeah,
the
I think there was a sax
yeah?
player.
Well, he would. I mean, Dave's great, great player. But his first love was jazz, and he's got a jazz quartet. So you know, he was concentrating on that. So we got a really good harmonica player. So so the style of music evolved a little bit, you know, from being very sort of T-Bone Walker swing blues. We still do that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
but with a harmonica driving it, you know, it became a bit more sort of Chicago bluesy. And now we're doing a bit more. I'm playing a bit more on the with a bit of cranked up Telecaster, you know. So we've got.
yeah,
I don't play much lead. I play the occasional sort of, you know, Chuck Berry type of
yeah.
riff, but we got a guy now who a new guitarist too, and he's very much influenced by the likes of the Fabulous Thunderbirds, Jimmy Vaughan, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Johnny Guitar Watson, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I think we've got a massive set now, and we do cover various shades of blues and R&B.
Yeah.
which is good really, because it means if you're playing a sort of jazz type venue, you can concentrate on that. If you're playing a pub on a Saturday night, I think you can crank up the the Jimmy Reed blues and a bit of Chuck Berry and stuff like that, which is a good position to be in.
Yeah.
And we play for hours and hours and hours.
How many songs are in there? How many songs have
yeah.
you got together now?
Oh God, up 70 or 80. But I mean, we did one last time where we just had heard it on the radio, and he said, "Look, this would suit us fine." And so we listened to it, and we got to the sound. Well, we got there back started actually, just because and so let's work on a couple of new tunes, and it sounded really good and very fresh and was well received, when we played it. But yeah, we've got a fairly extensive repertoire now. Yeah.
That's brilliant. What actually got yourself first into music and playing and singing?
When I was at school,
yeah,
there was a way you could jump the lunch queue, and the way you could jump the lunch queue was to learn a musical instrument, believe it or not. So, and my form teacher was a music teacher, and he encouraged us all to play. Fantastic guy. So I took the trumpet or the cornet so I could, get into lunch 15 minutes earlier. And then I thought, well, I quite like this music business. And then, of course, I was at secondary school in the 70s. And it was much sexier to play guitar, preferably an electric guitar. So started then. My first guitar was a Watkins Rapier, actually.
Okay.
A Rapier 33. If I'd have kept it, I think they're now worth a fortune on
they are,
eBay,
yeah.
But
wow.
So yeah, started electric guitar. I was in a band at school. Then when I got into the sixth form, if you played a musical instrument, you didn't have to do PE. So in a way, my motive for starting music in the first place was not a purist one, love of music, although that's developed over the years.
Yeah, of course.
It was to avoid other stuff, I suppose. And then once I got into my first band, which was probably in the equivalent of year 10, year 11 in school nowadays, it was great. Got together with 3 or 4 mates, did a couple of gigs, and done hundreds and hundreds, probably since. So and the music at the time, of course, it was stuff like Jimi Hendrix, Cream, Power Trio stuff, a lot of stuff like that. And then we went through the heavy metal. Well, it wasn't called heavy metal then. It was Deep Purple and rock, Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, that kind of stuff. So I got into rock guitar.
Okay.
But unfortunately, in those days, the sort of thing you're offering now, which is great, I think, where you can get music lessons with somebody who knows what they're doing. Because I've heard you play. I know you know your stuff on the guitar. Okay. You learned it all from books and from chord diagrams, and I had one called Hold Down a Chord, which is really difficult because there was no sort of you couldn't get a backing track to play along to. There was no sort of which was just a chord, which showed you here's a G, dum chinga dum chinga dum ching. But I think now where you can, as I say, get lessons and get online stuff and, sit on a one-to-one with somebody who really knows what they're doing, that would have been fantastic. So it just taught, we all taught ourselves really. But then when you get in a band, that gives you that impetus, I think.
Yeah,
A, to learn stuff, B, to practice to get to a level of proficiency.
Yeah, of course.
And then I've always thought that the reason is to play. The only reason I've ever wanted to be in a band is to play, because I know you probably do as well. People who join a band and they rehearse and they rehearse and they rehearse. They do a gig every 6 months or something. And to me, there's no real. Well, there is. There's the love of playing the guitar, of course there is. But I think if you're gonna make progress, I think you need an objective. Now, it could be like your students taking an exam, which is great, or it could be, you know, in my case, it was always the idea. So I always used to think, you know, join a band, see the world, be idolized by girls and all the rest of it. So that didn't quite work out. But yeah, sorry, I'm rambling on a bit here. But yeah,
Oh,
that's what.
No, that's brilliant. No, I mean, just going back to what you said, playing in a band, I've always found that, I mean, personally, I haven't been in bands for long because I sometimes prefer working by myself. If I've got an idea in my head, I like to project that. And
Yeah,
sometimes it changes,
yeah,
but it's like going into a recording studio though. You've got your idea, perhaps a finished product like myself, in your head, and this is how I want it to sound, but then you get something back and it's completely different. So that's why I've
yeah,
worked by
yeah,
myself. But I'll be honest with you, two things. Firstly, playing in a band, it makes you, as you said, get to a certain standard. You almost want to be able to change to that next chord that tiny bit quicker. And don't know, it's almost
yeah.
because of lockdown, the second point, because of lockdown, I've sort of gone, you know what? It wouldn't be a bad idea to play with someone. I've actually tried. I'm starting a small acoustic thing just for a bit of fun. If it turns into gigs when we're allowed to, fantastic. If not, and it's just recording, it's
Yeah.
experience as well. That's the main thing. If people are looking for experience in music, play with people.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. When just a quick question: when did
Are you
the?
doing original stuff, Dan, or what? Or
Oh yeah, yeah, I am. I've got this interview will be going out on February 21st, so it's a little bit past when it came out. But I've got a new EP coming out on January 15th. It's going to be on Spotify and all
oh,
the
right.
standard spaces. Yeah, yeah. It's just full of original tracks, a few
Oh, I tell you
acoustic
what.
tracks.
If we put, how many tracks in total?
I think I've got 8. I think.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because it
Well,
was meant.
when I hope. Sorry, it's easy to interrupt. Sorry for doing that. It's
Don't
just
worry.
that there's a slight delay in
I
your
know.
voice coming through. I was going to say when we put a copy of this on our Facebook page, the band Facebook page, perhaps we can do a link to because we've got a reasonable number of followers. We could do a link to your EP, can't we? So people can
Wow.
you know, get into that. That'd be good. Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you
What
very
was
much.
the date again?
It comes
Pleasure. What
out.
was the date? Did you say?
Yeah, it comes out on January 15th. It's going to be on Spotify. It's called The Lost Year, and it's basically, as cliche as it's going to be, a summary of 2020. It's sometimes feeling isolated. It's feeling like there's no one there. Because you
Yeah.
are literally stuck potentially in a box by yourself. Yes, you may have family downstairs, but you need that interaction with other people. It's almost getting to a point where you're building yourself up, you're building yourself to get back out there, to go for that walk for the hour that we were allowed to exercise last year. Just getting yourself to get back out, to feel that confidence in yourself and do what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've become a really keen runner, by the way.
Say again, I'm sorry, it didn't
you know,
quite come through
in
there.
fact, I was into running for a couple of years before this happened, but I go out 2-3 times a week and sort of 10K, something like that. But it's good for your head. Gets the feel good sort of really. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, listen, I'm going to look forward to hearing that that EP. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Under lockdown, I mean, I've been playing a lot more guitar. You know, I mean, I think when you saw it, I was just doing vocals, but I got hold of a really nice guitar. Actually, it's a classic vibe Telecaster. in butterscotch, and you know, it's a beautiful instrument, and it's ideal really for you know, that kind of cranked up rhythm thing you get with Chicago blues in particular, through a valve amp, because we're all purists in Dr. T-Bone, and the good thing for me is no effects pedals, nothing. You know, just play the guitar into a valve amp and crank it up. It sounds, you know, sounds really sweet. So again, that's been something I think I've used my time profitably doing. You know, sort of improving my guitar playing. I mean, you know, obviously I've been playing for years and years and years, but because we had such good instrumentalists in the band, it was easy for me to just think, well, okay, I'm the front man, I'm the singer, play a bit of harmonica, and that's it. But the two guitars things now is start to sound quite nice.
Yeah, oh, brilliant. Just a quick question then: have you got any sort of funny memories, happy memories, or happy mistakes, I should probably say, from touring, from playing, that are hopefully PG?
PG. Well, when I was at uni, I went to Leicester University, and funnily enough, we used to play a pub called the Saracen's Head. I was in a band those days called Dr. Spock, and that was a sort of metal type of band, progressive band. And there's this pub, the Saracen's Head. We used to play there the first and the third Friday of every month for about 2 years. And in the second year, they said, oh, we got a band coming up from London, and they're going to be doing the second and fourth. So we thought, right, you know, what they're going to be like. And I'm not kidding. When they turned up, it was the Stranglers. So, you know, and this was just before they had I'm talking about 75, 76. I can't remember the year precisely. But these were, you know, the Stranglers always had this image, didn't they? The men in black. You know, they were a bunch of bad boys, actually. And the landlord always insisted that you weren't allowed to drink when you were playing the gig for some reason. I'm glad that's not the norm. And these guys turned up, and they used to just buy a can of Coke, get rid of the Coke, pour it down the sink, and top it up with scotch or vodka or something.
Lovely.
So, but they were great. They were great guys, but older than us, and they did look like a bunch of, you know, sort of blokes who just got out of Wandsworth. So we sort of rather liked, you know, being able to sort of pal around with them. And funnily enough, I think the fee for the gig was like 20 quid back in 75, 76, and they were getting the same. So they would come up from London in the van, do the gig, and we got to know them quite well. So that was interesting.
Wow.
Any other funny ones? I remember. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember a band called Medicine Head. Medicine Head. It used to have a lot of. They're on top of the pop. Signed to John Peel's label, Dandelion.
Okay.
And they were a two-piece band. One guy in and played a drum with his foot, and the other fellow played harp and so on. And we did 5 or 6 gigs with them in from Leicester, Nottingham, Derby, and so on. And they never ever used to drink, but in those days, if you're playing a students' union, you get Newcastle Brown, you know, to just, you know, sort of backstage. And I just remember one particular night, I had so much to drink. You know, I went onto the stage. This was at the University of Nottingham, and my guitar was on. My guitar wasn't on the stand. Stupidly, it was just propped up against the amplifier. I staggered on and knocked it over. You know what happened? The tuning pegs take a bash, howling feedback, and everything else. And I had no idea. I had no idea how to tune it. I was incapable of tuning it. So the vocalist came over, and I'm like this, and he's tuning it up, and it was the worst gig I've ever done. It was completely out. I was out of it. It was zonked and out of tune. So just shows you. I've never made that mistake since. But yeah, they're stuff like that. Really, they were interesting days because we got lots of support gigs with fairly well-known bands when in mid to late 70s.
That's brilliant. Well, just moving on then slightly, we're going to look at something that obviously is helping us talk today and something that has helped a lot of people in the past year, the internet. Now, how do you feel personally that the internet has impacted music as a whole, whether it be for new artists trying to get their music out, whether it be for guitarists or drummers or however who are trying to learn, or how do you feel it's impacted on a whole with social media as well?
Well, yeah, I think you've covered a lot of it just in framing the question. I think there's a good aspect to it and there's a bad aspect to it. I suppose the bad aspect is that artists who kind of relied on selling, albums, for example. I suppose the model once upon in the not too distant past, the model used to be the band would go on tour. The tour would really be often to try and promote their latest, album release. So you could run the tour at a slight loss, and therefore, because people would think, well, they're great, I'll go and buy the album. I think when artists can't do that anymore, and people can stream stuff, and the artists are getting, I don't know what do they get, less than 1p per play and stuff like that. I think the impact on record sales, CD sales, vinyl sales, everything else has been unfortunate. And I think the knock on from that, as I say, is that people can't afford to tour at the prices they used to have, knowing that they'd make it up on the product. So that's a bad side of it. I think the good side is, as you say, Dan, I mean, people from, people like yourself, bands we can stay in contact with people who follow us. We can announce that we're doing gigs. We can put, videos online and everything else. As we've seen, some musicians have been very, very creative during this time, rehearsing together, recording together, and everything else. So I think it's it's good and bad. I don't know which is the most significant. I suppose it depends where you are in the. I mean, I went to see Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze, and at the end I got him to sign something, and I said, look, and he said, like, these days I feel as if I'm running a bit of the cottage industry, really. I'm recording stuff myself. I'm managing the release of it myself. Obviously, they're still selling product, but any artist, I suppose, who formerly sold a lot of albums and stuff will probably tell you the same thing. It's not what it was. It's more like a cottage industry these days. And I suppose for young bands, I suppose if you think about it, Dan, the model used to be you get yourself a record contract, wouldn't you? You'd sign up, and then they give you an advance. You'd earn the money to pay it back. That model doesn't seem to be appropriate anymore. So, I think that's the worst side of it, really. How musicians are. Some people are just getting ripped off. I mean, if you the rates. I know Parliament even has been looking at it lately, haven't they? People have been, Nadine Shah, for example, and one or two other musicians have been telling parliamentary subcommittees, look, we can't survive on the money we're getting from streaming. So I think that's a really, really bad side of it. As I say, for learners and for getting exposure for your band, if you're on the way up or on the way down, you can use it to your advantage. So that's not a very clear answer, is it? But,
it's a perfect answer.
It's good and bad, I think.
Exactly. I completely agree. I completely agree. You've got your pros, you've got your cons. I'm on exactly the same wavelength as yourself. Pros for me, you've got the likes of Spotify, which get your music out there, but the con of Spotify is someone will pay 10 quid for the premium and play your music. They could have it on a playlist. They could play your music 100 times a day, and you'll probably get a penny.
Yeah.
Which is a complete shame.
But you're getting it out there. Yeah. It's like self-publishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
People who self-publish a novel, for example. That's a good point, Dan. Maybe I didn't make that clear enough. It is a way of you getting your stuff out there, isn't it? In the first
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah, it's as you say, it's a way to be heard, but at the same time, it's if you're doing it for fun.
You're frozen, mate.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
There we go. I think. Yeah. So if you're doing it for fun, then
I think we're back. Yeah, I think you can get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for fun, then you're not too worried about an income. An income is just it's a little bonus. But if you're trying to make music full time, then you can't rely on that 1 penny per 100
Yeah.
streams or whatever
Yes.
it is. You need to have that. So you need to find a different source of income for your music. So leading on with that then, what would your advice be for new artists who are looking to get their music out?
Well, I mean, I suppose this comes back to the good side of social media, really. I mean, you've got a way of visible following through social media, through, I don't know, your Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. I suppose you exploit that for all that it's worth, really, and you accept that you're not going to make a huge amount of money from selling albums and things like that. But you see, then we come back to the issue of going out to tour. You if you're not getting the money in from the product, I like to use that expression, you therefore have to make sure, I suppose, that you're not losing money on touring. And I mean, I know some venues now are. I suppose it depends. Some venues pay you on a cut of the door, don't they, rather than giving you a fee. So if that's the case, so my feeling is that more and more venues are saying, look, rather than give you a fixed fee, we'll give you a cut of the door. So in that case, I suppose you could say, well, letting people know you're playing, but then you can't carry on just go around in circles in your own town or your own region, can you? You need to go further afield. I don't know what the answer to that is, really. It's a way of getting music out there in the first instance. You can build an online community, but how that actually enables you to make a living. The reality is that some quite successful musicians still have day jobs, don't they? They teach music, they lecture in music, they do something different. It's going to get harder and harder, I think, because there's so many artists out there. There's so many people putting more stuff out there, via social media. The model that was isn't going to be the model that looks at, I don't think, for.
No, I honestly completely agree with you. It's difficult because you've got so many people who are trying to do it and get their music out there, and almost a lot of people, especially at the moment, trying to make money from it. So if you've got, say for example, on Facebook, you've got all these friends as such. On Facebook, I've got 190 odd friends on there. I can't personally say I know each one individually. I know of certain people.
No, of course not.
But if they said, say for example, 100 of them said, I've got a new album out, it's £10. Straight away, that's £1,000 that I need to pay. So it's almost, it's becoming a very, very, I'd say, narrow market to get into. Personally, if you want to do something, break it down, do something different, put a single out there, just release an EP, put an EP even out for free, 2 or 3 songs, put them out for free, get people to listen to you, and then they will want to come back and support you, or hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to what you'll get experience of this firsthand, won't you? Once your stuff goes out on Spotify, how will you know from whoever? How do you know how many people have actually sort of listened to your stuff? Then how will you sort of track how big a market you're reaching?
So there's it's a website. I use something called DistroKid, and on there it'll tell me how many people have streamed on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, how
All
many
right.
people have bought it on different websites, and whether it's been used on
Yeah.
radio, and I've been given the payment
Yeah.
from PRS. There's just loads of different things like that. It is my second EP. The first one I did 5 years ago now, and this is sort of just a follow up because
Right.
5 years ago it was it was a teenager album. It was something that I'd built for 3 or 4 years growing up, trying to find different songs that I liked that I'd
Yeah.
written. And this one is very much grow up, get on with it. You're an adult now. You've got to have these responsibilities. It's very much that vibe, as well as looking at last year.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
just going to writing very quickly. Then it's
Yeah.
it's
Oh, well, I look.
it's just hard for people. Like if you sit down and write a song, 9 times out of 10 you won't have anything. But if you're on a walk, if you're on a drive, if you're halfway up Mulvamai, you will have an idea, an inspiration, and you need a notepad, a phone to write it down on. You need to have those 2, 3 lines that you get, and then you can build from that. That just going off a little bit, but that's my advice to
Yeah.
people who are starting out
Yeah.
and trying to
Yeah.
write music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This there was a Liverpool band called the Icicle Works, and Ian McNabb is what they still tour as the Icicle Works from time to time, but Ian McNabb works as a solo artist, and I think he's a fantastic, musician. And I remember saying to him once, "Where do you get what do you start with? A chord, or do you start with?" He said, "Well, just a phrase," and he said he was listening to, remember Slade, Noddy Holder.
Yes.
Noddy Holder was on telly, and somebody said, and it was one of these sort of early evening, sort of magazine family shows, and they said to him, "Look, Noddy, what is Slade? Is it a rock band? Is it a pop band? Is it a mum and dad band? Are you?" And Noddy Older said, "Well, we're all things to everyone." And him and I've said, "I just love that phrase, all things to everyone." And one of his best songs is actually begins with that tune. And so, yeah, ideas. I'm like you. You get a phrase, don't you? You get a phrase. I often find, I don't know about you, but when I pick up the guitar, I find I automatically sort of go to a similar chord sequence. If I picked up my guitar now, I'd probably go, I don't know, D, B-7, something like that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get something, but if you're not careful, you get a very sort of basic kind of melody, which isn't terribly interesting. And sometimes you need to deliberately try, don't you? I put the capo on or something like that, capo on, and then I'll try a chord sort of, up the neck somewhere, or I'll try a different key that I normally. The good thing about being in the Dr. T-Bone is we flat this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Oh.
Otherwise, I think there is that danger that, as I say, you'll compose, or you'll get your voice will get used to just singing in the same key all the time, and I think you do need to stretch, don't you, and try. But I mean, I don't know. They used to say, that writing, for example, is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. And I often think that, coming up with a tune is a similar thing, really. The idea is just going to come to you, or you're going to dream. Paul McCartney was on the other night, wasn't he, saying he dreamt.
Yeah.
You have to work at something and maybe put on digital recording, come back to it and shape something up.
Yeah.
So
no, I completely agree.
I'm going to listen to your EP. I'm going to, now we've had this chat.
Oh, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have come to the end. It's been
You've
40 minutes. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for doing this. It really does mean a lot.
Pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, Tony.
It's a
Take care,
pleasure.
pal.
Pleasure. I'm happy to support and
Oh, thank you.
take care.